Everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ella Steingard. I'm Director of Partnerships at Club Z. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is, I lost everyone. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is a series that we started at Club Z for our parents. They've asked us many times if they want to learn the same kinds of things that their teens are learning. And Club Z stands for Zionism for Teens. Our mission at Club Z is to create a network of educated and articulate activists who are committed to Zionism and advocate for Israel on behalf of the Jewish people. And our work really could not be more timely, as I'm sure you all agree. Tonight, we have our final program in our series of master classes, Zionism After Dark. And we have our very own Masha Merkulova. Masha will be talking about practical Zionism, your activist toolkit. And I know that Masha doesn't need an introduction, but I have to, Masha. Masha, as many of you may or may not know, but Masha continues to be, and for many years, spent many years, being an activist in the San Francisco Bay Area, and addressing anti-Semitism on campus and advocating for Israel. And she's been recognized as a recognized authority in teen Israel education and advocacy. And we, Masha gets calls and emails at this time from all over the country asking somebody needs to mute. And regretfully, we are at a time where Masha's talk is really so timely. And without further ado, I invite Masha, and then we'll have time for questions. Masha.
Ella, thank you so much. So welcome everybody. I am just gonna jump right in. I prepared a bit of a presentation, nothing too scary. Let's see, hold on. There you go. Okay, so for the A students in the class, if anybody wants to shout out, I wouldn't be a good educator if I didn't do a quick review. Does anybody remember what we did in the first session? Drum roll. We talked about legal rights to the land of Israel from the standpoint of international law. And we brought in Ran Bar Yoshafat, who is an attorney, and he addressed those issues. And anybody remembers what happened in the last session? Drum roll. We had Olga Meshwa-Washington talk about the claim of apartheid and also the bigger issues that you might hear that are anti-Israel claims. Okay, and now I am here to present practical Zionism. So now that we know that we have the rights, now that we know that the claims are incorrect, what do we do with this? So first I want to ask you, I'm going to go quickly. So it's a rhetorical question. Who was a Zionist? Until recently, a Zionist, for a majority of sort of like Israelis and our general Jewish consciousness, was a Zionist is somebody who lives in Israel, who goes to Israel and cultivates the land, and they're the Zionists. Who is a Zionist today? Well, the Jewish Agency actually changed sort of like a little bit their definition when they said a Zionist doesn't have to live in Israel, you could live anywhere, but you are considering yourself as, if you're Jewish, part of the Jewish people. If you're not Jewish, part of the people who view Israel as a legitimate state. And so the question is, how do we do Zionism? And this is going to be four-part. I'm gonna concentrate on the first two, but as a parent of a school child, teenager, as a parent of a college kid, as an alumni, and as a community member. So as a parent of a school child, what I suggest, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to do is we need to remember three things. Relationships matter. What does that mean? It means that we need to start investing our time in our kids' schools. We need to get to know the teachers. We need to know the administration. We need to know the secretary. Bring them a gift. It's very useful. Why? So you become a resource. You become source of information. So when something comes up, you are the voice in their ear. When a teacher brings up Gaza in a trunk or this thing, you will have legitimacy to bring it up to the administrator, or you will have the legitimacy to tell the teacher, listen, our kids are in school, if it's elementary school, it's what, K through 5th grade? That's 6 years. And I can tell you right now, things start already in elementary school. If it's middle school, that's 2 years. You have to invest the time. We have to invest the time. You need to know the school culture. And again, by the way, I want to go back to this slide because it's more pleasant to look at. Elementary school, Hanukkah, Passover, all of those things. I'm on a mission to normalize Jews, for us to stop being invisible and for us to be normalized. So parents don't go like, who is a Jew? Is it somebody with horns? You have to know as a parent what is being taught in and out of the class. Case in point, this was last week. This was May 19th. This last year was a gift to us because we could have been with kids in a classroom because everybody's online. So May 19th, this teacher in 6th grade in a California school gives a quiz. Some Palestinians are facing evictions from their homes by Israelis. Haifa, Tel Aviv, Nazareth, East Jerusalem. What business the 6th grade class has anything to do with this? This was 2 weeks ago when our students took a screenshot. Now this is College Board AP World History required content. Our children are getting tested on this. And what do we see? Jews occupied Palestine during the Roman Empire. Just in case you didn't know, right? After the horrors of World War II and the Holocaust, that's why Israel was created. But by the way, there were 2 Palestines, one for Jews, one for Muslims, who were already living in Palestine. The establishment of Israel in 1948 created anger and resentment, right? So I don't need to go through all of these things. You should know, and if you don't know, sign your kid to Club Z. They'll tell you what's wrong with these things. But you have to understand, this is nationwide. This is AP history. Who takes AP classes? The best and the brightest. This is their study material. This is what they're getting tested on. Why are we surprised that these kids come out of high school thinking that Israel is the white colonizer oppressor? There's no surprise there at all. This is, again, last week. This is May 17th. This is a Manhattan school associated with Bard College. Dean's Hour at a Distance, Basma Alush, Policy and Advocacy Advisor, Norwegian Refugee Council, Humanitarian Assistance in the Occupied Palestinian Territory. This is all from last week, last 2 weeks ago. What else is outside of the classroom? Clubs. So here is a high school that is offering the following clubs. Oh, my things don't align, but okay. So Progressive Student Awareness, STAND, Genocide Discussion, Jumaya, Muslim Student Association. I can guarantee you all 3 of these classes will be talking about Jews as colonizers. What do Jews have? We have a bagel club. They're calling it Jewish Culture Club. I can also guarantee you they're not speaking about the conflict or the fact that Jews are indigenous to Judea or the fact that comparing Israel to apartheid is an insult to those who overcome it. And finally, how are we doing Zionism as parents of children in the classroom, in the K through 12? We have to start insisting on very simple accountability. What do I mean? An hour later, 2 hours later, after this screenshot was taken, it was posted with very simple thing, obscene. 6th graders are being asked about Palestinian home evictions on a quiz in a LA school. There's a teacher's name, there's a school information, a phone number. What happens in about 2 hours later? Everybody in the school gets a message from the vice principal. Good afternoon. Assistant principal with an important message for parents and guardians. The safety and well-being of our students and staff remain our top priority. I'm calling to advise you of an incident that occurred today when a culturally insensitive phrase was posted on an online platform about current events. We take incidents like this seriously, have it removed. We also ask you that you speak to your child about inclusion. Right? 2 hours. 2 hours. Boom. Why? Because courage. We cannot expect our kids to face scary things if we are ourselves too afraid to speak up for our children, not for somebody else's children, for our children. And now your darling is touring colleges. There are 3 things you should be doing. You should interview Hillel director, Jewish student director of Jewish student life, anybody else that is going to be connected to anything Jewish. If is there a Jewish studies department, meet with them, talk to them, get a feeling. Is that where you want your kid to go? Is there an Israeli flag on the Hillel building, or is that literally hanging by the broom closet on the 3rd floor so nobody can see it? True story. AMCHA report. I'm going to talk about AMCHA at the end, but AMCHA Initiative is a great organization who keeps track of incidents, anti-Semitic incidents, on probably over 100 college campuses. Finally, something that you should do is find Jewish students that are currently enrolled in that school. Ask them for dinner. Students are hungry. They will always be willing to come and talk. And get the scoop. Get the scoop on the professors. Get the scoop on the clubs. Get the scoop on the school. Don't trust what Hillel website of that school is going to tell you. If there's a Chabad, ask Chabad rabbi to meet with you and also get the scoop. Chabads are not really going to tell you the real things, but at least you'll get a sense. Listen, Chabad feeds our kids Taco Tuesdays, Wednesday something else, Friday night dinners. You want to know who they are. And finally, they're in college, they're away. Oh, thank God, we're getting our freedom back. No. Yes, but no. Yes, you have to stay involved. And it's something that nobody talks about because everybody's like, oh, I don't want to be a helicopter parent. Let me tell you, my son graduated college. I hope he never sees this. I still will not tell you what degree he has. There's lots of words. There's marketing, there's business, there's something entrepreneurship. There's lots of words in it. I never knew what class he took. I never knew what grades he had because that's his responsibility. However, what I did know is what is going on his college campus when it comes to Jewish life. What is going on his campus when it comes to Jewish study classes that he was in. And that is very important because, again, you have to know what's going on. We cannot kids are still kids, especially American college students. They're still children. It's not like, in other countries, they mature a lot faster. So you have to stay in touch with the people that you've met during your college tours. keep establishing those relationships, keep being those resources for them. I'll give you an example. My son went to Wake Forest University, and a lot of groups do their own orientations. And so I was looking, and there's a Catholic orientation, and there is ROTC student orientation. There's all these groups of orientation, but there was no Jewish orientation. So I called Jewish Life director and I said, "Hey, is there a Jewish orientation?" And she said, "Wow, what a great idea." So now they have a Jewish orientation for kids who can come early, which, by the way, for parents whose kids are going to school, once they start going to school, there is the move-in day, which is extremely stressful. But if you come into orientation, you can come early. You can move in early. You can make your room pretty. If you're a girl, it matters. You should be subscribing to email lists, the Hillel list, the Chabad list, the whatever department list. Become aware. I created my own dedicated inbox on Gmail because there's a lot of emails and I don't want to overwhelm. Well, Gmail is free, right? So create your dedicated inbox so you could keep it all. And when you have communications with the school, everything will be in that inbox. You don't have to search for it. Finally, when the school is doing after school events, or again, you should know. My all examples are mostly going to be from my experience. A very problematic, anti-Semitic Jewish chair, Barry Trachtenberg, who in Congress gave a testimony that there's no anti-Semitism on college campus, and no, it's not anti-Semitic to compare an IDF soldier to a Nazi, decided to host an adult learning course, right? And he posted the syllabi, and it was extremely problematic. What I did is I told my community here in the Bay Area, all the way, right, from North Carolina, we went on a writing campaign to him, to the school, and also to the local Jewish community vis-a-vis, there's only one synagogue in town, right? I don't know if they ever got our letters. I have no idea. I do know that we were not allowed to participate remotely because Zoom wasn't a thing back then. But I can tell you that a little bit of fuss made the community curious about it. The rabbi, who is the rabbi from San Francisco, I'm telling you, he is not a right-winger at all. I believe he's a Reform rabbi. Started taking the class, became extremely concerned, brought it to the administration. Barry Trachtenberg is no longer a chair, and Barry Trachtenberg knows that I still keep my tabs on him, and I'm really, Barry, if you're watching, anytime I'm gonna be ready. And finally, again, you have to be willing to bring things to social media, to the administration, to the parents group. They say that there's no such thing as bad publicity. For schools, there is. Why? Schools, higher schools, universities, they're big business right now. And everybody wants Jewish students. Really, our kids are hot commodity. They're good students. They contribute a lot outside of the classroom. Everybody wants Jewish kids. Use that to your advantage. And by the way, you are the consumer. You're paying the tuition most of the time. Use that, and do not be afraid to take it on your social media. If you have connection to the media, normal media, take it to the media, because that's the only thing right now, today, that works. I'll give you a very quick example. Stanford students there's a group of Stanford students, and they compiled a dossier on one Emily Wilders, who was a nice Jewish girl who was the most virulent anti-Israel activist at Stanford. And they did it meticulously, and it was documented. And She graduates, she gets a job as a journalist, as a reporter, as a staff reporter in Arizona. And the students are trying to get the press to publish the story. So here that there's a very biased person who is now hired as a reporter for Arizona publication. Nobody would take the story. I don't remember the timing, but 2 days after Israel blew up the AP building, there's an announcement that Amy Wilders gets hired by the AP. Again, they're knocking on doors of publications. Please pick up the story. Nobody picks up the story. All they do, they publish it on their own website. The student groups publish it on the student groups page on Facebook. 2 days later, Emily Wilders gets let go from AP. Is that a coincidence? I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's a happy coincidence. Do I believe in coincidences? Not so much. Again, it's going to require courage for us to really, we have to stop being afraid. And also we have to stop being afraid of what is the Jewish establishment going to say? What are they going to do? They're not going to do anything, just like they haven't done anything. We literally have nothing to do, nothing to lose. And we can't afford to keep doing nothing or to keep for somebody else waiting to do something. 2 more points. As a college alumni, the only power you have is really the power of your purse. So yes, you should be writing to your school and you should be expressing yourself. You should stop all your donations, but don't just stop. Write to them and tell them that you're stopping the donations. And then tell all of your alumni groups that you're doing that. Your LinkedIn groups, your alumni groups, let them know. So right now, University of Scripps, University of Michigan, Vanderbilt, University of Santa Clara, they have all sent out letters to entire student bodies saying how we stand with poor Palestinian people. Really? Really? Why don't you say we stand with poor Palestinian people, we stand with poor Israeli people who are being subjected to PTSD? Why don't you demand that, I'm gonna go on a spiel, but you know what I mean, right? So if you're alumni, you need to know what's going on. UC Santa Barbara is gonna have a BDS hearing on Wednesday. Do you have connections? Start making phone calls. Finally, as a community member, you don't have to have kids in college. What you need to do as a community member, find your 2 to 3 nearest universities. Reach out. You can go to Facebook, find those universities pro-Israel groups, meet with those students, get to know them and tell them, I'm here for you. If you need anything, here's my information. This is a picture of Wake Forest University. For those that are not in North Carolina, you have to understand, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's 2 hours from Charlotte, it's 2 hours from Raleigh, right? Not a lot of, it's not a big Jewish community. They had an anti-Israel week, and community members drove from Charlotte and from Raleigh to show up and to get support to these students. There's about, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 students, and there's about 20 community members that, yes, they took the time to drive and to show the students that they're not alone. And we have to do that. If your kid is far away in school, support a kid that is in your area. Show up, help them. It's very, if your kid is sick and you want to send them a matzah bowl soup, you find a Chabadnik who will do that. Become that Chabadnik who will feed the soul of somebody else's kid. Because it's very isolating. That's the thing. Our kids are isolated when they're in college they don't know anybody yet, or if they know somebody, they're still afraid, really afraid to come out as Zionists. And here are the two, besides Club Z, of course, notable organizations. So Amcha Initiative is run by Tammy Benjamin Rossman, and she has a very robust website. It's amchainitiative.org that will provide a lot of resources, a lot of information about individual schools. And also she keeps on top of various petitions that are going on. Academic Engagement Network is an organization that provides support for pro-Israel academics. Because if you think that our kids are scared to come out, they're there for 4 years and they're gone. For faculty, this is their livelihood. This is they've worked on it all life. We need to also support those pro-Israel professors. They need to know that they're not that they have our support. And there you go, our beautiful ladies. The only way for us to do it is if we actually do it. If we just keep talking about things, nothing will change. We need to actually do it. And with that, I went very fast because I want to hear mostly from you, and we'll do a very good Q&A.
Please feel free to post your questions in the chat or raise your hand.
Or unmute yourself and ask a question.
So a quick question. So I just went to Amha website. So the way I get info from them is just by getting their bulletin, right? Or you suggest getting the information by other means?
So there is, if you go there, you'll see the tabs of like incidents or list of colleges. You just, whatever college you're interested in, you can click on it. And you'll see, I think she is built already archive of about 7 to 10 years.
Okay.
Yes, they also have, she writes bulletins. I don't think she sends out regular newsletters, but yes.
Okay.
Also they do have a questionnaire, if you will, what to ask Hillel directors when you go to college tour. So you can find it there as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Nobody has questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, as you know, my daughter is on college campus now and overwhelmed with all the anti-Israel comments from peers and all the organizations on campus. What is your advice for students who are on college campus right now?
First, she needs to find at least one like-minded friend. Build yourself a circle. It doesn't have to be a big circle, but build yourself a group of friends with whom you could commiserate, but also with whom you could do things. So find a group of friends, start learning. If she wants, we can do our online pilot and give them a little bit of knowledge. And then you need to just talk. Then you need to, again, courage. You need to not be afraid to talk to your peers. It's just peer to peer. I'm not even asking. So my expectation of anybody who graduates Club Z is they need to be able and willing and excited to raise their hand, right? And put professor on the spot. And it's a lot of fun. Really, it's a lot of fun when they do it. And they're having fun themselves. For students who don't have that knowledge, they still need to build that confidence. They need to learn. They need to hit the books.
Another question came in on the chat. My wife and I are expecting our first child.
Oren, Mazal Tov.
And obviously the child is too young to discuss these topics, but how do you recommend bring up these topics as as we're raising our children?
I think conversation about Israel should be part of a normal conversation of a Jewish family. You should know first of all, you should know what's happening in Israel. You should go there, and it should always be part of the conversation, right? Watch Israeli movies, read Israeli books to your kids. Just make Israel a normal thing, and when the time is right, of course, sign them to Club Z. Unfortunately, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, unfortunately, the need for us is not going to decrease. It's only going to grow. And listen, I got an email today about 2 hours before our presentation. Hold on just a second, let me find it. Now let me, okay, there you go, so nobody can see who it's from. Share screen, browser. Okay. Masha, your name came up on one of the Israeli WhatsApp groups, in regards to anti-Israel unbalanced and frankly false and deceiving information being taught in classroom in the area. The issues at hand has twofold. Parents are afraid to raise their voice out of fear that the retaliation will come in the form of teachers taking their revenge at the parents' kids in a class. And parents are unsure of what actions can be taken to prevent and correct such behaviors. I'd like to, address these issues. Here's the latest that happened. I can't open it because you have to be in that class list to open this link. But I couldn't even, the material is based on Turkish content with Al Jazeera clips. Can you imagine what it is? So I couldn't make myself, I couldn't bring myself to watch it. I watched, I think, like 2 minutes of it, but you can imagine, right? You can imagine what it is. So, again, yes, I understand being worried that if you speak up, your kid will bear the brunt of it. And I also understand because the kids will tell you, oh, mom, dad, don't say anything. Don't say anything. It's okay. Don't say anything. That is the biggest mistake, and you're going to regret it. You're going to, every single parent that I have spoken to who did not speak up in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, they all, 100% of them have regretted it. Don't allow your children to suddenly tell you how to parent. You know better. And also, what an awesome example of leadership that you will show to your kid. And you will teach them. I like to listen to a whole bunch of different podcasts and rabbis. I don't claim to have really deep knowledge of Torah, but from what I understand, the most common phrase in the Torah is, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. And that is what I want these parents and all of our Jews to stop being the Jews with trembling knees, stop being invisible Jews, and demand what is ours. Nobody will give you the respect until you start demanding it.
Quick question, Masha.
Yes.
Are there, like in the corporate world, there are such things as anti-retaliation policies? Are there such things in academia? Do you know? Like, for example, in the example that you give, let's say somebody's parent files a formal complaint and goes through whatever steps they need to do to try to correct a particular situation. Is it at least punishable by disciplinary action if it's proven that the professor then retaliates at the student?
That would be a good question for a college professor. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do a panel with college professors? Honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I can tell you that what I did is director of Jewish Life, her boss, his boss's boss, and the dean of students knew me. And I was very open in my emails to them. And I'm like, this has happened, this is unacceptable, this has happened, this cannot happen again, right? And I was very, and I wrote to them, you think I'm a meddling parent? I'm not. I'm a concerned member of community. I will hold you to the same standard as all the other communities are holding you to, right? So that was it. By the way, speaking of courage, um, when Wake Forest University's Anti-Israel Week was kicked off by posters, really nice professional posters that were put on easels in a student life center, right? And they were there, and they were all the biased things that you could imagine, and there were about 10 of them. And Jewish students politely asked, well, could we put our posters next to these posters, right? And this was like a 36 hours of negotiations. Meantime, there's an Israeli student that's walking by. So Israeli student, he's post-army, he traveled the world, he's not afraid. What does he do? He takes all of those posters, collects them all, throws them to the lobby person who is in charge of whatever it is, and he said, this is a lie, this is not allowed. Walks away. What happened to the student? Nothing. Nothing happened to the students, by the way. But because, our student, my son, got harassed. He was accused of intimidating, and, he was called a white supremacist and a Nazi. Why? Because he was asking questions during an anti-Israel event on college campus. And this is something that we tell our kids. Whenever you are in confrontation, hit record. Record yourself and record the other. Just for your own protection. We have to record. Otherwise, there's no, it's he said. Record yourselves.
Masha, another question that came in, what if it's the principal of the school? How high do you go? What do you
That's
do?
a problem. So one of our biggest problem with the K through 12 is that we are not persistent enough, and I understand why, because it's exhausting, it's icky, and it's a lot of work. So I can tell you, I used to sort of like, whoever calls me, right? Oh, this happened, help us. And I would literally drop everything, and we'll be going and we'll be helping. And then when it's time to for the parent to actually go to the school or to actually address it, they back out because they're afraid. And it's like, I just spent 20 hours prepping and researching and doing all of these things. So I tell my team, don't do that until you get a commitment from the parent that you're going to see this through. And then what do? You see this through. If the teacher is not, so whenever you're communicating to the teacher, CC the principal. Whenever you're communicating to the principal, CC the superintendent. If you know school board members, you can find out who they are, CC them. About relationship building, again, start finding out who is sitting in those school boards. The other thing is that I think we do need to realize that local governments do play a big role. And I strongly suggest for anybody who has any kind of inclination to start taking seats on local governments, and especially school boards. Especially school boards.
Very helpful.
And publicize social media. Naming and shaming, it's our number one gift from God right now. Really, it is. And your kids right now online take screenshots. I mean, the example of this sixth grader, it should energize everybody.
Hey, Masha, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, my kids, I'm very vocal Israel support, as you well know. My kids know a bunch about Israel, and I always talk to them about the conflicts. But I have one that's about to go to college in the fall in Louisiana. Even though he's heard it from dad, right? What's a good thing for him to do in preparation for going away to school in August? What's a good thing for him to do now? or over the summer?
Find out who his roommate is. Start making friends with the roommate. Reach out. If Hillel is, do you know if is there a Hillel?
I don't know. I think there would be, but I don't know for sure.
Find out if there's a Hillel. Hillels, they're either student, so smaller schools will be student-run Hillels. So they don't even have a staff person. It's a student-run Hillel. So reach out to those students and feel them out. But I would not just let him do it by himself. I would be like, what did they say? What did he say? Right? If it's a professional run Hillel, get that Hillel vetted. There are very few Hillels in the country who are pro-Israel. And for example, Silicon Valley, Hillel of Silicon Valley is staunchly pro-Israel. When the outgoing Hillel director, Sue Maltier, was outgoing, her condition was she gets to hire her successor, and they have to be a Zionist. And by the way, Hillel International tried to take that power away from her, and Sue insisted, right?
Yeah.
So there are a few Hillels around the country. So, vet your Hillel. They're very easy to vet, by the way. For example,
Oh, yeah.
Stanford Hillel 2 years ago was very proud that they came up, instead of adopting IRA definition of anti-Semitism, they came up with their own, where Hillel was happy, quote unquote, pro-Israel students, and J Street was happy, and SJP was happy. And I'm like,
God.
how is this a win?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, no, we've seen the problems with bad Hillels, so I'll have to vet that. And I remember all the bad Hillels in the Bay Area. Sue is a great exception. What about any kind of again? He's heard the basics of the conflict for me, but is there any kind of summer crash course or anything about things he should be prepared for and be ready to fight about or defend, or the top 5-10 points, whatever? Is there any kind of crash course training that'd be good for him just before he shows up at campus in August?
Are we doing it? Okay. We're gonna do an online crash course. I think it's gonna consist of four lectures. It's gonna talk about rights, Jewish rights. It's gonna talk about apartheid. It's gonna talk about anti-Semitism, and the last one, they're gonna meet other students who are a couple of years ahead of them, and so they get to sort of like meet them, ask them questions.
That sounds excellent. That sounds excellent to hear from their peers. I mean, he's heard it from me and he believes me, but hearing it from someone other than Dad has its own benefit,
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Masha.
Yeah. More questions? Oh, really? That hurts.
Well, people think of another question. I'm not going to have a question, but just a statement. A lot of what you said about getting involved in the school boards and all that, I can tell you that, Masha, you're absolutely right. I've been involved in a fight locally here in the Bay Area, in Sunnyvale, with other parents to open the schools. This has nothing to do with Israel, but getting very involved, making your voice heard, not being afraid, showing some courage, lobbying the school board, all these things mattered. And we got our schools open. It was a huge fight. And it got nasty sometimes, but you have to stand up. So even Israel aside, just these techniques, Masha, that you've been talking about, I can tell you not only are they correct and work, but they've worked in the last 3 months. And we've gotten a lot accomplished in opening up our schools here in the Sunnyvale, California School District. So yeah, you can't be afraid. You're absolutely on point there.
Yeah, and we have to make it a priority. It just what it is. And again, if we're asking our kids to be the leaders, and we're asking and expecting them to stand up, they have to see it from you. You have to model it to them, right? And we can't just get bogged in our own quote unquote little lives. We have to live big lives. And we have to, you will want to look back and say, I did this. I accomplished this. And this is our way of doing it. And again, your neighbors should know that you're Jewish. Your co-workers should know that you're Jewish. We need to stop being invisible Jews. And I know that we are conditioned in the diaspora that like, let's just not stick out. Let's just not. They don't need to know this, right? Somebody asks you, oh, are you Jewish? The first question is like, why do you ask me this? Like, it's need to know basis, right? We're not spies. We're just Jews, right? It's not need to know. Be out there. Okay, I'll keep talking. Are there questions in the chat? No. One thing. This is something that the Charlotte community was able to accomplish, which is absolutely amazing, is that this small group of mostly Club Z parents and teens showed up to a Palestinian anti-Israel rally. It was, I think, 2 weeks ago, and held their own, right? The other side did not expect them. It was all very peaceful, but the message was sent that no, we will not stand for it. And then a week later, Club Z, can I say single-handedly? Alec?
I think so, yes, you can.
Galvanized nearly 200 people to show up to our own pro-Israel rally. Despite that the Federation didn't support it, the synagogue, nobody sent any information. And the way that the kids are carrying themselves, because they know they did this. The kids and the parents of Club Z, this tiny little brand new, we busted into town 18 months ago, 2 years ago. We did this. And these parents and these teens will be like, yes, I was there and I did this. During the rally, there's a big building right next to the park. Somebody opened their windows and threw a huge Israeli flag at the window, right? Like to wave it, right? So they hung huge Israeli and American flag, right? And
I have a picture, yes.
You have a picture? Great. You have to send it to me. And that's empowerment, right? So you have to empower your teens and you have to empower yourself. And you have to be able to say that you did something. You did something that matters not just for your family, but for the next Jewish family in that school. You want to talk about tikkun olam and helping each other? That is it.
Thank you so much, Masha. This is such a very important and timely discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. If we could take one more question, and if not, we're going to end on this.
I'm gonna challenge people to ask a question. If you are afraid to ask a question now, how are you gonna stand up to a teacher? Come on, ladies and gentlemen.
We have a question. Why did the Federation support this? I imagine talking about the Charlotte.
That's it. No, but listen, Federation in San Francisco didn't support it. Federation in LA did not support it. If you're donating to the federations, donate to Club Z instead. Really. No, but really. Our money will go much farther than what you donate to the federations. If you donate to JCRC, you have to stop. This is the group that is, who started the kneeling campaign last year? San Francisco JCRC, and then it took over the country. Literally, Jews with trembling. You want to see a Jew with trembling knee? Look at JCRC leadership. And yeah, no, listen, and some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, she's burning all the bridges. The bridges are long gone. And they're long gone because I cannot, I'm a Russian Jew. I spent 17 years working in the hospital. I don't know how to be subtle. And I don't know how to talk in circles. And I can tell you, we have to be forward and we have to be strong for our kids, not for anybody else, for our kids.
Amazing. Thank you, Masha. And
I just want to, so a quick announcement for existing parents in Club Z. Bay Area, we have our end of the year celebration in the middle of nowhere. If you have not yet signed up, please sign up because of the email that you received with instructions. I don't want to announce it here because it's going to go up on YouTube. If you are thinking of signing your kid up for Club Z, please go to our website, click get involved, click on your location, and sign up. And it's Club Z for Zionism.org. And on there you'll find contact information for all of the regional directors, so you can contact them directly. Do we have any other announcements?
we do. We had a question, how do we get more information about Club Z in Charlotte? And you can get that on our website, and you can reach out directly to Olga Washington, who is our regional director in Charlotte. So this is the last in our series for master parent classes, but we have a very exciting announcement. We have the very legendary Ruth Weiss, the one and only, coming to speak to Club Z and the Club Z community on June 27th at 1 p.m. And there's an Eventbrite link in your chat. Please sign up. And
so she would know, by the way, she was a professor at Harvard. So she would know what kind of consequences do college professors have, if they discriminate against a student.
Yeah, that's very true. By the way, please submit your questions in advance for Ruth Weiss. So David, hopefully you're welcome to join us, and do submit questions in advance so Ruth can answer them. I think another question.
So I think she's also speaking in a for Tikwa at about the same time. Yeah.
Yes,
But it's great that she's gonna talk to Club Z. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. We're very, very lucky. And she's actually a big fan. She's been following Club Z. So she's a fan of Club Z, and we're very excited to welcome her. And as Masha said, we're in recruitment season. And so if you know other families, if you're interested to find out more about Club Z, definitely go online, learn more about us, be in touch with us, and sign up for next year. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you so much.